Why would anyone want to leave Canada? You might be thinking. Isn't everyone in the world trying to get into Canada? Well, it's funny how popular these videos are actually becoming. Why I left the United States, why I left the UK, why I left Canada, etc., etc. In this video, I'm going to tell you why I left Canada. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Tristan Powell. I am the Yonderpreneur. I help people learn to live geographically and financially freer lives. I can break down my reasoning on why I left Canada into two specific things. One being my personal desires to be abroad, and the second being the failings and the not so great things about Canada. So, if you have been following me through the years, on either YouTube or social media, you see that I've been doing this financial advice traveling thing for about 6 years now. I originally left Canada back in 2019 when I was 19 years old. I first moved to Mexico, where I lived there for about a year on a working visa. Little did I know that this little working visa in Mexico would be my introduction into this thing called uh, immigration and working visas and working holiday visas and investment visas, all these things. At that point in time, I just thought, oh, I'm going to go live in Mexico. After about a year living in Mexico, I ended up moving back to Canada, not because I wanted to, but because that's when the pandemic happened. And although I would have probably had a freer life in Mexico, I also would have had a very difficult time paying for my life while in Mexico during COVID. So going back to Canada was the right decision. And from that experience, I learned everything happens for a reason. In Canada, during the first few months, I actually started a business in crypto that turned out to be really successful at first. And this was my first taste at this thing called geographic freedom. A few months into being into Canada, I was like, okay, I'm going to go see something else. So I went to Europe. I spent about a month and a half in Europe seeing some very popular tourist destinations virtually empty. Maybe because I was traveling during the peak of COVID? Yeah, that could have played into it, but I also was traveling in the middle of winter. And from that moment on, I am now a winter travel supremacist. Winter traveling is so underrated. No herds of people, everything is quiet, very little lines in museums. It's very nice. Anyways, back to the topic. After Europe, I moved back to Canada just for a little while, did some business in the USA, and then I moved to Europe full time, where I was living in the Netherlands. There, I worked with my venture capitalist co founders to scale my business into something even greater than it was in Vancouver. So I then spent an incredible year living in the Netherlands, and it was amazing. Living in Amsterdam is incredible. But all good things come to an end, and 2022 bear market came, and unfortunately, I could not survive through it, and my business and myself parted ways. For better or for worse, I was going back to Canada again. But from this moment, I kind of learned that not only do I like doing business and investments, I enjoy that. I kind of knew that from when I was 19, even younger than that when I was day trading as a teenager in high school. But what I also learned is that adapting and traveling and learning cultures was something I was also very passionate about. So I've been now, since then, trying to put those two things together: traveling, seeing cultures, business, and investing. I am most comfortable in this strange state of being uncomfortable. Whenever I feel comfortable, like if I'm in Canada for too long, then I just kind of get bored and then I'm become unhappy. When I'm traveling or in a new place, I'm in this constant state of survival and there's a little bit of challenge to life. And that keeps things exciting and keeps me happy. So when I was in Canada again after returning to the Netherlands, I started Yonderpreneur, which was a combination of traveling and business. So, looking to get uncomfortable again and to grow Yonderpreneur, I decided to do a trip to South America. My mission in South America was to grow Yonderpreneur and be an affiliate. So, my first idea was I'm going to do affiliate work for a company called World Packers, which is basically a partnership where you volunteer with NGOs or small families on farms. They have a wide variety of different volunteering activities that you can do. So I spent my first month in Panama, in the jungle. Yes, my first volunteer in the jungle was to do social media work for an NGO called Geoversity. After the first month in Panama, I then went to Bocas del Toro, which is in the north of Panama, kind of close to Costa Rica. And I worked on a hotel there, and I was doing the same thing, social media work. I only spent about 2 weeks there, and then I was off to Colombia. But I didn't take a plane. I did something different. I went on a boat, 5-day sailboat trip all the way from Panama to Colombia. And it was an incredible experience. If you're going to ever do the whole Gringo Trail from Panama, I definitely recommend not flying, but actually taking a boat. I spent a little bit of time in Colombia before going to Ecuador, where I did my next volunteer activity, which was for a hostel in Manta, Ecuador on the coast. Another great experience. I had only one bad experience volunteering this whole time, so if you're ever thinking about doing some volunteering, I can definitely recommend World Packers. I'll have my link to it below, and it will be an affiliate link, so it does shoot me back a little bit of cash if you do sign up. After Ecuador, I did a little small trip in Peru, spent some time there, visited my friend in Chile after that, and then went back to Canada again. And I did all of this before I turned 25. So now that you have my backstory, you can kind of understand why I constantly leave or left Canada. So like I said in the beginning of this video, it's like 70% me being me, and then 30% Canada being Canada, the reason why I'm not there. My personality just has this desire for adventure. I also constantly want to be challenging myself. We always get this preconceived notion of things that, oh, I can't do that, or oh, I can do this. I want to blow that out of the water and say I can do everything. An example would be going and living in the jungle in Panama. People didn't see me as an outdoorsy person. I didn't even see myself as an outdoorsy person. I'm, Mr. Collared Shirts. So when I told my friends and family that were closest to me in Canada that I was going to go live in the jungle in Panama for a month, they were a little flabbergasted. What? When? Why? Where? Why are you doing that? What? Why? I don't usually come across as the guy that would do stuff like that. And it's usually more of like a granola person, not my entrepreneurial self. But I feel if a man isn't challenging himself, he will have a boring existence. And, well, the great creator didn't create a staircase to nowhere. And of course, this extends to women also. I just don't think men are told this enough specifically. Now, whenever I'm in Canada, I feel just as foreign as entering a new country for the first time. It's a very strange feeling, not really recognizing the place that you grew up in because it's changed so much. But then at the same time, it hasn't changed at all. And on that note, I'm going to segue into the other part of this video of why I don't like living in Canada because of Canada. Let's get the big one out of the way first. The cost of living in Canada. For those that don't know, I am from Vancouver. If I were to live in Vancouver on the income that I have now, I would be homeless. Very luckily for me though, my family lives there and there's usually a spare room. When I look at housing options in the greater Vancouver area, it looks like there's nothing for less than $1,000 a month, Canadian. But that $1,000 doesn't even get you your own place, not even a one-bedroom. You get a room and you have to share that room or that apartment with a roommate. That's pretty much double what I pay here in Tokyo. And I have my own apartment, a really nice one, not too far away from downtown. 15-minute train ride, it's nice. And I know there's going to be some Canadians in the comments below saying, oh, that's because you live in Vancouver. I'm sure if you lived in this small town or this city in the middle of the country, you would have been able to live on your own. And to that, I say, I'm happy that you're happy, but living in a small town will never match my aspirations of what I want to do with my life. Napoleon didn't become the Emperor of France by staying in little Corsica. Elon Musk would never have joined PayPal if he stayed in South Africa. And I'm not saying that you will never be successful in a small town. What I am saying though, it definitely does shrink your possibilities. Another problem in Canada and small towns and just, Canada in general, is the transportation system. So, for example, my suburb in which I grew up in is 30 minutes from the downtown of Vancouver, if there is no traffic. But there's always horrendous traffic, so it's probably about an hour and 15 minutes usually. And then there's no real options for transit. From my home to downtown Vancouver via transit would be about an hour and a half because I have to take a bus that comes very rarely. Then I would go to the SkyTrain station that doesn't always run on time either and is very packed and it's very small. Nothing here like Tokyo. Actually, the packed thing is quite similar. Your mobility in Canada is just limited if you don't have a car, and if you have a car, be prepared to wait in traffic all the time. Just a complete waste of time. Compared to Europe, where I lived in Amsterdam, where you could ride a bicycle from one end of the city to the other in about an hour if you were riding really fast. Or here in Tokyo, where everything that I could possibly need is within a 15-minute walk. And if I do want to go to downtown Tokyo, it's a 5-minute walk to the nearest major train station, where in 15 minutes I'll now be in downtown Tokyo. The efficiency of some countries, not all of them, in Europe and Asia is unbeatable. So instead of wasting my life away an hour and a half every single day commuting, I now have that time to focus on me, which I can now put towards a project. And I'm not even going into the costs associated with having a vehicle. Not having a vehicle, all that money can now go into my investments. Now, speaking of money and investments, Canada also falls flat. So yes, the Canadian dollar is worth a bit more than the yen, and you'll make more money in Canada, but the rate of savings in Canada is also really bad. So it's about equal if you're here in Japan or there in Vancouver. According to numbeo.com, living in Vancouver is going to cost you $1,500 a month without rent. So when you add rent into the picture, and let's say you find a bottom of the barrel sharing with one or two roommates, your own room, but shared kitchen, shared everything else, you're probably looking at about $1,000. So that's about $2,500 a month rent and expenses. Now, the average wage in Vancouver is $23 an hour, which is not the minimum wage, that is the average wage. So let's say you're working full-time on the average wage, $23 an hour. You make $3,680 a month. Okay, so it seems like you have a respectable $1,180 left over at the end of the month. Yeah, that's not entirely true because you're not taking taxes into account. At $3,680 a month, you're paying an 11% tax a year. After tax, your income is $2,987. Now, at the end of the month, you have slightly less than $500 Canadian to invest or get ahead with at the end of the month. But, of course, you're rewarded with being able to live in the beautiful city that Vancouver is, close to the water, close to the mountains, close to the nature. Oh, and close to crime? Most people don't know this, but crime in Vancouver is actually really bad. I have been all over the world, in Eastern Europe, in South America, and the scariest place I have ever been is Hastings Street in Vancouver. Seriously, if you're not from the city, Google this. East Hastings Street, Vancouver. My family's house is very, very far away from that, and it's actually in a quiet little suburb, or so what I thought. When I was about 17 years old, we had a break-in into my little quiet house in the suburbs while I was home alone. As I was writing this video, I thought that maybe now actually that event might have something to do with the way I live. Ironically, though, I moved to Mexico when I was 19, so it's not considered safer than Vancouver at all. Canada just isn't the same place that I grew up in, and it's changed for the worse, ways that I don't like. So instead of staying in an abusive relationship, leave. Why should you stay in an abusive relationship just because you had good times together? When things are bad, leave. There are also some economic reasons not to be in Canada, but I think that will be best in another video, as this one will already be pretty long. If you're thinking about leaving Canada, or you moved there and it wasn't what you expected, share your experiences in the comments below. And once again, my name is Tristan Powell, the Yonderpreneur. If you're thinking of leaving Canada, or you just want to see what else is out there, or do a little vacation, feel free to reach out to me at Yonderpreneur or at x.com. I always check my DMs there. And that's all from this video. Thanks for watching.